We've all heard of word of mouth marketing, but does it actually work? What's the number one thing that people are mistaken on with word of mouth marketing that is absolutely destroying how well it's working for you? And how do you actually make it work? That's what this video is all about. So does word of mouth actually work? The short answer is yes. But the question that we really should be asking is not is word of mouth working, but how well is it working, right? It's not really a yes or no, but if we were to think of it on a big scale, over here is it's working a little bit and over here working a lot. The difference between the low end of the spectrum and the high end of the spectrum is absolutely huge, and that's what we're going to spend the rest of this video talking about, is how do you make it work either a little bit or is it hurting you, and how do we get it to the high end of the spectrum so it's one of the best things for your business, and how do you 2x sales with it. So the first part about word of mouth marketing is actually decreasing the negative word of mouth. We all know people and how they work. If you do something good for someone, but it's not that good, they're probably not going to tell a bunch of people. But if you do something slightly wrong, or you have a mistake with a project or whatever you're selling, that is going to carry far more weight than anything positive. So the very first thing that we have to do is decrease the negative word of mouth marketing. So what's the number one mistake with word of mouth marketing? The number one thing is doing average work or being a good business and thinking that that's going to get you word of mouth. When in reality, people are trained and we're hardwired in our brain to only talk to other people about something that goes unexpected. So if you're doing things that people expect you to do, they're not going to talk about you. But if you do things that people don't expect you to do, whether that's in a really good way or even worse, a bad way, then people will talk about you. So first, before we explore how to make word of mouth better for you, let's talk about the negative side of things, because I don't think anyone really thinks about this on how we can make sure negative word of mouth isn't happening. So let's dive in how to get rid of negative word of mouth. The very first thing about negative is 80% of you are actually not subscribed. So before we move on, do me a huge favor and click that subscribe button right now. All right, all jokes aside, for real, negative word of mouth marketing is far more likely to happen than positive word of mouth. We all know that customers will be much faster to point out your flaws versus the simple things that are expected to go well in your job. If it just goes well, they're probably not going to talk about that very much. So we want to decrease negative word of mouth marketing, but how do we do that? All right, so first off, we have the obvious things, and we should all just be doing these no matter what, but that doesn't mean that we always do. And that could be anything from like getting back to people on time, sending out quotes in a reasonable amount of time, answering the phone with a positive tonality, all the things that we all know that we should be doing, that sometimes we make mistakes. And obviously when we make a mistake, if someone notices that, that is all what can lead to negative word of mouth marketing, because if we're making those mistakes too much, then people will remember you for your mistakes, not what you're doing well. There is actually a form of negative word of mouth marketing that we can actually control as business owners. And I want to say this really simple quote. As William Shakespeare said, expectations are the root of all heartache. And so really, when we think about how happy a customer is going to be with us, it is a main difference of expectations on one side versus reality on the other side. Have you ever had a customer that what you would call is being unrealistic? Maybe they have such high expectations for how things should be going, and in reality, no matter how good you were, it was not ever going to be met as far as our expectations. So of course, we all have customers that are like that, but did you know that there's actually a way to fix this? We can set the expectations for our customers. All right, so let me give you an example. I do concrete, right? So what I would normally do is when we would do a stamped concrete project, we'd go out, we'd form it, we'd pour it. And if you guys are in stamped concrete, you know that when you first do it, it looks so ugly because you have the release on top, you still have the forms, you have splatter marks, even if you're using plastic. And potentially when the customer would come home, they'd be so excited to see their brand new stamped concrete patio. They would see it and it wouldn't look anything like what they had imagined. And all the time I was getting phone calls 7, 8 o'clock at night saying, Tyler, why the heck did you sell me this stamped concrete patio? This looks nothing like blah, 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 blah. And what I realized is everyone had this expectation that the stamped concrete should look perfect day one, even though that was never going to be a reality. So what did I do? Now, when we do stamped concrete, we always either call or email or probably both. We tell the person ahead of time, hey, just so you know, we're pouring your concrete today, but it is not going to look anything like what you had envisioned until after we seal it. If anything, even if you like it a little bit, we're probably on an amazing track, and then laugh, right? And then now what happens is when people see their concrete, they think it looks ugly, but they expect it. So now the same exact thing happened. I didn't change anything with how my business operated, other than telling the person ahead of time what to expect. All right, one more example of how we can actually use this is, let's just say, scheduling. I'm going to talk about one instance where we're doing a project in 3 weeks. One instance is we look at our schedule originally, we say, hey, customer, I can get to your project in 2 weeks, but over the next 2 weeks, let's just say we have project delays, we have some rain, and all of a sudden when 2 weeks hits, we call the customer and we say, hey, I'm so sorry, but we have to delay you for 1 week. So now we're doing it in 3 weeks. That customer is then gonna be thinking in their head, man, I should have been having my patio by now. Every single time that they look outside, they're gonna be like, man, I should have been able to sit out there with my table and chairs. And they're gonna be disappointed because their expectation was not met. Now let's talk about the exact opposite scenario. Let's just say when we first schedule the customer, I say, hey, we can get to you in about 4 weeks. Is that okay with you? And they're gonna say yes. And in the meantime, they're not gonna feel anxious about it because they're expecting a month. Let's just say I call them in 3 weeks and I say, hey, John, I know that you're really excited about your patio, and great news, I actually just had a spot open up on my calendar. Would you like to take that? And now all of a sudden, instead of calling the customer with negative news, I'm calling them with positive news, and it makes it look like I thought about them and I cared about how they were going to have this experience, and I'm bringing positivity. So again, we did the customer's job in 3 weeks. One of them was upset with us. One of them was happy with us. It's all based on the expectations that we set. So in short, how do we avoid negative word of mouth marketing? Number one is just don't suck and do the things that you know you should be doing, which is obvious. And then number two is anytime there is an opportunity to set expectations for your customer, then make sure that you're under promising but over delivering. All right, so that's half the equation. That's how we get rid of negative word of mouth marketing, to make sure people aren't talking bad about your company. Now let's get to the real fun stuff, which is how do we get people to actually talk good about us, and how do we make our customers become our number one advocates for our new customers? All right, so kind of like what we talked about earlier, just get this in your head that if you are doing everything the customer expects you to do, there will be no word of mouth marketing, or very, very little. People don't rave about companies or products or experiences. That just satisfies the need that they originally reached out for. So if you do what is expected, like show up on time, have a reasonably good product, and all that stuff, you are not gonna get that much positive word of mouth. So how do we actually do that? The number one way is to do something special. This could be something like a thank you card. So imagine when you're done with a project, what do most customers expect? You get an invoice, you pay your invoice, and then you say sayonara, never talk to them ever again. Doing something above and beyond that the customer did not expect, even if it's not that much as far as a financial investment or time investment, like a very simple thank you card can go a long way. What's an even more powerful example? Let's just say that you make it part of your sales process where you tell all of your salespeople, or if you're in sales that you do this, that no matter what, it's company policy that before you sell someone, you have to find out something unique about that person. Let's just say that you found out that they like hunting, or they really like wine, or they love local food, whatever that is, that you found out something very unique about that person. Then when you go close out a project, you go to collect your check. As you're collecting a check, you give the customer something else. And let's just say that they told you that they love hunting. Can you imagine what it would be like from a customer's perspective if, as you're paying this contractor who did good work and did everything that you expected, now all of a sudden says, hey John, I just want to thank you so much for your business. And because that we know that you love hunting, we actually got you a $100 gift card to REI. Just thank you for your business. And we want to make sure that not only are you enjoying your patio this summer, but hopefully you can get outdoors, go hunting and all that stuff. And we hope that this helps. Again, we really appreciate your business. As you can imagine, if you were the customer and this happened to you, that would blow your mind, and it would way exceed your expectations as far as how much that company cares about you, and you would tell all of your friends about said company. So you kind of get the point. Any effort that you put in that is above and beyond what the customer expected you to do will go a long way. All right, number two way that we could do this, instead of going above and beyond, we could even just do something that's considered a little bit silly or a little bit weird. So this is a personal weakness of mine because I'm not really a silly or funny person, but if you're a little bit more like humorous or you're a little bit more larger than life, then this can really help you. So here's an example. Let's just say that someone buys from you, or they sign up to do a project with you, they submit their down payment, and every single time it's company policy that when someone submits a down payment, that we have to record the owner of the company doing some weird dance and song thanking the customer for their business and saying that we're excited to do it. That is super silly and weird, but what you can't say is that the customer would not remember you for that. I can almost guarantee you no other company that they ever work with would do that. And so does it really help their product? No. but does it help them remember you and want to tell that silly story, or maybe even better, show their friends, oh man, I'm doing a driveway, like look what the company that's doing it, look what they did for me. It would make people laugh. And so remember, people don't remember what you do, but they do remember how you made them feel. And so if you can make someone feel good or warm or like smile, anything like that, they will remember that and they will tell people of those little funny things that you do as part of the sales process. All right, and the number 3 and the final thing that we can do to improve word of mouth marketing is do what people expect, but be way better than what was expected. So for instance, when someone asks for a quote, they expect us to send a quote. There's nothing like normal or crazy about that. But do they expect us to send it in a day, 2 days, 3 days? They probably expect it to come in 3 days. Well, what you can do to go above and beyond someone's expectation is, let's just say that you reach out to someone, they get a quote, and instead of sending it in 3 days, you send it in 3 hours. So doing things like this, where you're doing what's expected of you, but way faster or way better, is gonna go above and beyond. And then when they're talking about with their friends, they're gonna say, oh yeah, I just got a driveway. And you would not believe how fast this company was. Every single time I called them and I needed everything, they were Johnny on the spot. They sent me emails back right away. They called me back right away. I got my estimate in 3 hours. People will remember you, if that's part of your game plan going into it, that you are going to go above and beyond with your level of service or being faster. Think of Jimmy John's, right? Their whole entire business model is built on, right, ultra fast delivery. So if you can go above and beyond, really, whether it's fast or quality or service, but you have to be honest with yourself. It has to truly be above and beyond what the customer was expecting, or else it won't count towards word of mouth. All right, and one last example. Let's say, for instance, everyone expects a clean job site at the very end of it. Let's just say if you do a driveway or a patio and you didn't even touch the rocks at the property, but you look around and you notice there's twigs all over, there's leaves. Let's just say you live somewhere like I do and there's fall and it's just like, it can get kind of messy. Imagine when your cleanup crew goes, they pick up all the forms and all the things that they were expecting you to pick up, but you also cleaned up their rocks. What would that have taken your team? Maybe an extra 15 to 30 minutes, but when your customer gets home and notices that you did that, that will be such a kind gesture, and that is an example of going above and beyond that will actually make someone refer you work. So in reality, word of mouth, again, it's not a yes or no. Word of mouth does work, but the question is, how well is it gonna work? Are you gonna stop all of the negative stuff from happening to you? Are you gonna set expectations? Are you gonna do everything that was expected of you to begin with? That's number 1. And then number 2 is, how many of the things that we talked about are you doing to increase word of mouth? Remember, it's not doing like one thing and that's it. It's not just a thank you card. Imagine how powerful it is if it's a thank you card plus going above and beyond as far as your speed, right? So just kind of think about that, get a little bit creative, pick like 2 or 3 from the list and hone in on that. And if you do this, yes, it's not easy, but imagine all the money you could save paying for marketing if this is what you put inside of your business. So that's everything that you need to know about word of mouth marketing. That's how to avoid the bad stuff, how to get the good stuff. If you liked it, leave a like on the video and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.